Would the clerk please restate the vote?
Mr. Chairman, the final tally was 14 ayes, 13 nays.
The vote was 14-13. The nomination is reported favorably.
Okay, so RFK Jr.'s vote is out of the committee and headed for the Senate floor. Now, that's one way of putting it. Another way is to say tens of thousands of children's lives are in danger, and the Republican Party is saying it out loud. We'd rather let them die than cross Trump.
And I've been contacted by text, by phone, by email. And if I didn't respond to anyone, it was not to be rude. It's just I was getting hundreds of messages a day personally and thousands through the office. And I just physically could not. Now, Mr. President, believe it or not, of these hundreds of people calling me and contacting me, however they did, many of them disagreed with each other, diametrically. Three-dimensionally, they disagreed. But the unifying factor is that they all desire the best for our country, even though they differ from each other so much. And maybe that kind of frames my feelings about this nomination. For context, before entering politics, before ever thinking about running for political office, I practiced medicine for 30 years in a public hospital for the uninsured, caring for those who otherwise would not have been able to afford the access to the care that I provided. After seeing patients die from vaccine-preventable diseases, I dedicated much of my time to vaccine research and immunization programs, personally witnessing the safety monitoring and the effectiveness of immunization. Put simply, vaccines save lives. This is the context that informed me when considering RFK as the nominee to be Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. It was a decision I studied exhaustively, I took very seriously. And as I said I would, I spoke with Mr. Kennedy not once, but multiple times over the weekend, including this morning. We had in-depth conversations about the medical literature, about the science behind the safety of vaccines. He referred me to studies and to people. I reviewed them and spoke to those whom he mentioned I should speak to. Now, the most notable opponents of Mr. Kennedy were pediatricians on the front lines of our children's health, who regularly have to combat misinformation, combating vaccine skepticism with correct information that comes from their education, their training, and experience as physicians. They are aware of the falling vaccine rates and the inevitability of increasing hospitalizations and deaths of children from vaccine-preventable diseases. They are aware that children are now contracting diseases that they would not have contracted if the child was vaccinated.
That's a Republican senator who makes a case against Kennedy, a strong case, and then he says, I'm voting for him.
I look forward to working together.
Why would we elevate a former heroin addict who has stated that a worm inside his head ate part of his brain and says vaccines don't work and that chemicals in your food make you trans or gay? Why would we want him to be the next head of Health and Human Services?
There have been, as I understand it, dozens of studies done all over the world that make it very clear that vaccines do not cause autism. Now, you just said, if I heard correctly, well, if the evidence is there. The evidence is there. That's it. Vaccines do not cause autism. Do you agree with that?
As I said, I'm not going to go into HHS with any preordained.
I asked you a simple question, Bobby. The studies all over the world say it does not. What do you think?
Senator, if you show me those studies, I will absolutely, as I promised to Chairman Cassidy, I will apologize.
That is a very troubling response because the studies are there.
As founder of the anti-vaccine group called Children's Health Defense, Kennedy has for nearly 2 decades been airing debunked claims about vaccines. In recent years, he's gained prominence in the U.S. for making the discredited claim that childhood immunizations are linked to autism, which of course is a lie. I mean, Kennedy had his own children immunized. He also said that if he would become head of Health and Human Services, he would want to examine government vaccine safety data and share his findings with the public. Well, 2 points there. 1, the data is already there. And 2, sharing inaccurate data with the public kills people. Vaccines have greatly reduced diseases that once routinely harmed or killed babies, children, and adults. People all over the world, including in the United States, still become ill or even die from diseases that vaccines can help or prevent. So why aren't Republicans standing up to him when they know the truth?
But on this topic, the science is good. The science is credible. Vaccines save lives. They are safe. They do not cause autism. There are multiple studies that show this. They are a crucial part of our nation's public health response. But as someone who's discussed immunizations with thousands of people, I do recognize that many mothers need reassurance that the vaccine their child is receiving is necessary, effective, and most of all, safe.
At the end, I don't wear a mask for the same reason I don't wear underwear. Things gotta breathe.
Cassidy's vote would have ended this. The Treasury Committee voted 14-13 along party lines to give RFK a vote on the floor, where now it's going to take 4 Republicans to vote against. And it seems obvious that the 14 Republicans are afraid of Trump, even as Tiny Fingers bloviates more lies and obfuscations around vaccines and the science behind them. Trump, whose Wharton professor said he was the dumbest goddamn student he ever had, suggested that RFK Jr. could find a cure for autism. But what Trump was probably saying was that RFK Jr.'s confirmation is in trouble. But Cassidy's vote, despite his knowledge as a physician, tells you all you need to know. The men and women in the GOP would rather let children die than stand up to Trump.
And they're reporting that doctors, in a deposition, that RFK said doctors found a worm in his brain that had eaten part of his brain and then died there.
Kennedy is not only anti-science, but he suggested the chemicals in the water are making kids trans or gay.
The capacity for these chemicals that we are just raining down on our children right now to induce these very profound sexual changes in them. There's atrazine throughout our water supply. Atrazine, by the way, if you in a lab put atrazine in a tank full of frogs, it will chemically castrate and forcibly feminize every frog in there.
Trump tweeted this yesterday.
20 years ago, autism in children was 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 34. Wow, something's really wrong. We need Bobby. Thank you.
Of course, anything Trump says is rarely supported by facts. The rise in cases of autism is a change in methodology and reporting, not specifically vaccines. More importantly, 20 years ago, cases of autism was not 1 in 10,000, as Trump falsely says. Look, in plain speak, we have redefined our definition of autism to include a wider spectrum of people, and that's why there appears to be more.
Mr. Chairman, the final tally was 14 ayes, 13 nays.
If Kennedy gets to be head of Health and Human Services, it may be the very worst thing that could happen to American children moving forward, but also adults with polio, COVID, and the next pandemic, which could very well be bird flu. What's happening here is a dangerous precedent. The Republican members of the Senate are willing to let kids get sick and die unnecessarily so they can keep their jobs. Think about that, Republicans. Tell me I'm wrong. Go ahead, but you can't. Can you?
Damn right.
I'm as mad as hell.
Whether the women like it or not.
Suck my fat one.
This isn't their Republican Party anymore.
And this guy's personal life is a total disaster.
Trust me.
Shut the f*** up, Darren.
Who's with me? Oh, yeah, the lie.
Indictable.
Out of sheer morbid curiosity, I'm allowing this freak show to continue.
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
Tick-tock.
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.